He's a sports writer for the Sports Illustrated and host of the Red Diamond Report podcast. He is Wilton Jackson. What's up, Wilton?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Pretty good, man. How everything been lately?
Man, it's been good. Busy times, man. You know, NBA finals, you know, obviously OTAs in the NFL, you name it. It's always something going on in the world of sports.
Always something going on for sure, Wilton. So let's get right to it, Wilton. Let's talk about the NBA finals. We got the 8th seed Miami Heat taking on the number 1 seed in the West, the Denver Nuggets at Ball Arena tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. tip-off on ABC. And going into this matchup, Wilton, the Nuggets are favored by minus 360. That's one of the largest favorites in NBA finals in the last 20 years. So the Nuggets are heavy favorites going into the NBA finals. So what is your expectations, Wilton, for the matchup between the Miami Heat and the Nuggets?
You know, Trey, I really think this is probably going to be one of the better finals we've seen in quite some time. And that says a lot because we've seen some really great NBA finals. But I think that the stage is not too big for Nikola Jokic and this Nuggets team. Like, you know, some people don't get a chance or have not had the chance to watch Denver at this stage, or some haven't even been watching Nikola Jokic like that because you know, they feel that Denver is in a smaller market. It's not LA or Boston, those popular teams in bigger markets. But this is a really complete Denver Nuggets basketball team. When you look at the roster, you're talking about a Nikola Jokic, a Jamal Murray, a Michael Porter Jr., and Aaron Gordon. Like, they have stepped up and like played tremendously. Like, who in their right minds thought that they would sweep the Lakers with LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the lineup? Let it sit in, you know? And so when you think about that and the team that they're going to get, you know, in a Miami team that's coming to Denver for game 1, that won't be a pushover. But I think that this year, this Denver team is, in my humble opinion, is the most complete team that we've seen in quite a while. And I definitely think that Denver's going to pull out the series. I think it's going to be a good series, but I think Denver wins this series.
Hey, let's talk about the Denver Nuggets, Wilton, for a second. I feel like Nikola Jokic, we know he won back-to-back NBA MVPs. He got to the playoffs, but his team, they weren't able to get over that hump and get to the NBA Finals, mainly because he didn't have his co-star alongside him. That's Jamal Murray. For the playoffs, Jamal Murray, he averaging over 27 points per game. Talk about the importance of Jokic having his co-star Jamal Murray during this playoff run.
Oh, it means absolutely everything. Like, when you have a key player like Jokic and he's not the only player that you have to rely on to score the predominant, you know, bunch of your points, it's always going to help your team win. And with a player like Jamal Murray, we saw in the bubble, he was a breakout star, like automatic star in the bubble. And so with him, his mindset has been pretty much all season, and especially in the playoffs, to show that he's not only that player that we saw in the bubble, but he's better than that. He can play to that capability at this point in the season. And if you look at what he's been able to do, he's shown us that. And if you look at it now going into the finals, you only have to think that he's going to be able to duplicate that success going forward. You're talking about like the way his relationship with Nikola Jokic in dribble handoff situations, getting to the bucket, like he's played incredible. You listed his stats, like, you know, Jamal Murray averaging 27.7 points per game through the playoffs. Like, he needs to do that. He needs to continue that play going into this final series. But I'll tell you someone else who I think that a lot of people may not be paying attention to coming into this series that really needs to do well and step up, because if he does, it could really be the X factor, is Michael Porter Jr. We know the struggles that Michael Porter Jr. has faced, you know, with Denver and the injuries and things like that. But he has found his stroke, especially within this last series. We're really within the playoffs period. He hit some really big shots that helped Denver down the stretch. And if he can do that against this Miami team, this is going to be a really great series.
I agree with you 1,000% about Porter for sure. Now, Bruce Brown, Wilton, he's averaging 12 points per game in the playoffs so far. I think he's been a major X factor for the Denver Nuggets on this playoff run. Remember, Brown played with the Brooklyn Nets with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and we didn't see Steve Nash utilize Bruce Brown the way that Michael Malone is using him. And so I feel like he's a different player with this Denver Nuggets team, and he wasn't that same player on that Brooklyn Nets team. Talk about Bruce Brown and his development as a player and a major contributor for the Nuggets on this playoff run.
You're absolutely right. And not only just looking at what he's brought to the Nuggets, but I want to say I love the way that Michael Malone uses his role players and how they fit into the overall picture in the system of how they run their offense and on defense. But one thing that I like about Bruce Brown more than anything is that he plays with a level of confidence that maybe some wouldn't have, and he takes advantage of the opportunities that he gets when they're given to him. When he steps into a game, he may not always give you 12 or 13 points a game, but you can always count on Bruce Brown for a timely assist, maybe a timely rebound. He's always in the right place at the right times, making a critical play. Like I said, it may not resort to points on the board, but it may result into somebody around him, one of his teammates, getting an additional opportunity to score that also puts points on the board. So I love the way that he has been able to score. Obviously, like you said, you just mentioned his stats, but I like the way his grittiness that he plays with to also get his teammates involved. And I think that's probably the biggest asset beyond the points that he's, contributed to the team that he's been in this playoffs.
Now, Michael Malone, to me, honestly, Wilton, he's had this underdog mentality that he's been trying to sell the media. Against the Lakers, he kept talking about how everyone else wants to talk about the Lakers, and we're up 1-0 in the series. And he said last week that I think he said something like the Lakers they've gone fishing. We're still in the NBA Finals. We're playing. So he's had this underdog mentality. I feel like he's tried to sell the media, and he's probably telling his team that everyone's been kind of sleeping on the Denver Nuggets. Do you believe that Michael Malone and his message and him trying to sell this underdog mentality has helped the Denver Nuggets on their run?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I alluded to it just a few minutes ago, even with starting the segment. This is a team, like, for most NBA fans, like true NBA fans, what Denver's been doing all season. You've been seeing what Nikola Jokic has done in the past 2 seasons. He hasn't been the MVP for anything. He was in the running to potentially get his 3rd MVP this season. So it's not a fluke. But I think that in the concept of what he was trying to do with his team and telling them, like, we're considered the underdogs, I think they for sure have bought into that concept. But coming into the finals now, I can't say that he can necessarily keep that mindset that they're the underdogs. I think that, with the way that they've come into the playoffs, dominated, swept the Lakers. Like I said, no one put that on their bingo card before the playoffs started, that if those two teams got into a matchup, that they would sweep the Lakers with LeBron and AD in the lineup. No one would have picked that. So for them to do that, on top of the fact, play as well as they've played throughout this postseason, they're no longer the underdogs. He can still preach that mindset if he wants to, but statistically and what we've seen from the eye in their games, they're no longer the underdog.
And to your point, Wilton, I remember going into the playoffs, we were talking about how competitive the Western Conference was going to be. I mean, we were talking about Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. We were talking about KD, Booker with the Phoenix Suns. We talked about with the Clippers, Paul George possibly coming back, Kawhi Leonard, Steph and the Warriors in the mix, LeBron and the Lakers, and all the Denver Nuggets did was they was quietly the #1 seed. It was kind of quiet, Wilton. It was quiet all season that they were the most consistent team in the Western Conference. And dare I say, us as basketball fans and in the media, we overlooked the Denver Nuggets. We overlooked them. I know I did. I overlooked them. And all they did was they blew the Phoenix Suns off the floor in Game 6. They just completely blew them off the floor. And they swept the Lakers. So I think we kind of overlooked them throughout the regular season. Do you agree with that?
I think in a lot of ways people overlook them. And like I said, if it wasn't for me being an avid NBA fan and watching the games, Denver is one of those teams that will play, like, you watch like TNT or your ESPN, like those late night games. Those are the late games. Denver in those late night games. So if you don't stay around after that first game, you may decide to switch the channel. Oh, it's Denver, Nikola Jokic is going to give us a triple-double, 30, 12 rebounds, 10 assists or whatever. But like when you really watch those games and you look at the body of work that he's done within the last 2 years, and specifically now, like this guy, it may be unorthodox, but the guy is truly talented. And I just recently had a discussion with someone else in another show, is that you almost have to pick your poison with Nikola Jokic, because he's going to score. He's going to give you anywhere between 25 and 30 points. But believe it or not, That's not really what hurts you. What hurts you is when you have two players that's double teaming him, and this man at 7 foot can still pass out of those double teams and hit Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Bruce Brown cutting to the lane for a layup. Like, that's where he's the most dangerous. Agreed. When he can still get his teammates, and each one of those teammates I just named on any given night may get you anywhere between 15 to 18 points a game on top of what he's going to give you.
Agreed.
And rebound the ball.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I hope if the Nuggets win the finals, I hope they slide my boy Melo a ring. You know, my man Carmelo Anthony just retired a few weeks ago. I hope they can slide my man Melo a championship ring. But let's switch gears and let's talk about Jimmy Butler's Miami Heat, Wilton. So the Miami Heat, they came into the playoffs. They had to play in the play-in. They lost in the play-in to Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. They were trailing to the Chicago Bulls in the elimination game in the play-in. They beat the Bulls, and then in the opening round, the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler outplayed Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. They upset the #1 seed in the East. They followed that up. They go in the second round. They beat the Knicks in 6. And then the Boston Celtics, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, the defending Eastern Conference champion, and the Miami Heat beat those Boston Celtics in 7 games. What do you believe is the key factor in this run by the Miami Heat, who, quite frankly, have been a Cinderella team in the NBA playoffs so far?
I think the one word that comes, well, actually 2 words that come to my mind: persistence and discipline. And you know, Trey, I tell people all the time, like the key to success in life and anything that you want to do is discipline and persistence. Like, you're not gonna always have that same level of skill every single day. You're not going to always have that same desire to want to do that same routine every single day. But if you're disciplined and there's a certain level of persistence behind that discipline, you'll be surprised what you can achieve. And so I think when you look at this Miami Heat team, you know, they literally clawed their way. You just perfectly said it. They clawed their way through the play-in, get into the playoffs. You dismantled essentially the Bucks. Everybody's favorite when the playoffs started. Then you get a Knicks team who, my God, like Jalen Brunson was playing outside of his mind. Like outside of his mind. You get rid of them, and then coming into a Boston team that seemed as though they were headed back to a finals to redeem themselves from a year ago in their competition against the Warriors. But I think that persistence and that discipline, that hunger, that grit from Jimmy Butler has spread throughout his entire team. And you're talking about a team. Let's keep it real. Denver may have the most talent on paper, but those undrafted players, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Caleb Martin, they are playing phenomenal. Caleb Martin, like, I mean, I can't wait to see how much he gets paid in this offseason.
I agree.
He has played exceptionally well.
Yes, and Wilton, I said in the Eastern Conference Finals, Gabe Vincent turned into Gabe Curry, and Caleb Martin turned into Caleb Thompson. I mean, those brothers was hitting at a high level, and it's like every time I saw a Miami Heat shot go up, I just knew it was going in. It was going in every time.
Absolutely. And then just think about, you know, with Miami clinching Game 7. You know, obviously you probably saw, just like I did on Twitter, well, who should get MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals? Well, of course, Jimmy Butler got it, but you could arguably say, like, Caleb Martin could have gotten that award.
Absolutely.
Like, he probably should have gotten that award. Like I said, going back to what I said from the beginning, you didn't have on your bingo card that Caleb Martin was going to go off in the playoffs. We knew he could play. For those who knew that, you know, his background, the way he came up, undrafted, all of that. But you didn't think Caleb Martin was going to be the guy that helped the Miami Heat as an 8th seed get to the NBA Finals. You just did. But the fact that it did happen that way just says a lot about that team. And it also says a lot about Eric Spoelstra and how the way he gets a chance, he gets the credit of really, like, building this character, like building that discipline and persistence as a team that we see from Miami in most postseasons.
And that's exactly where I was going with it next, Wilton. When you look at most NBA Finals appearances, only Pat Riley, Red Auerbach, and Phil Jackson have more Finals appearances than Eric Spoelstra. This is his 6th NBA Finals appearance. He's 5-3 in Game 7s, 7th coach in NBA history with 5+ wins in Game 7s. Talk about Eric Spoelstra as a head coach and how he's able to get the most out of those undrafted players, Wilton?
I think, it starts from, he's been around this Miami Heat culture. That has been a really big hashtag and thought within this playoffs, like, Heat culture. That has started to become a reality and a real thing, especially taking steam with what they've been doing in this particular playoff or in this particular postseason as a whole. And I think that when you look at his background, he knows this team. And then, obviously having someone like Pat Riley in your ear to, glean from and understand, like, hey, if it's something that he doesn't know, you can obviously reach out and, share those conversations. And this is not his first time doing this. This is not Spoelstra's first time doing this. He's had the chance to coach legends. He's had the opportunity to, see like what he did right in times where, the Miami Heat were winning versus, times where they've struggled. Because this is not a team that has not come without struggles. Like we see what happened to them last year. We see what happened to we saw what happened to them throughout the regular season. I always tell people now, Miami is one of those teams in the regular season, you might count them out. And then all of a sudden, when it gets close to the playoffs, they go on this strong run, and it's like they're back in it. So you never really truly can count them out. And I think it gives credit and credence to what Spoelstra has built within that program, within that franchise.
And honestly, Wilton, I said this earlier, that the NBA needs to be investigated. I don't understand how the hell Eric Spoelstra never won an NBA Coach of the Year award. I don't understand, because I think he's the best coach in the NBA. Steve Kerr, he has Steph Curry. He has Klay Thompson. He has Draymond Green. Ty Lue got Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Michael Malone. He has Jokic. He got Jamal Murray. Right. All Eric Spoelstra has from a star standpoint is Jimmy Butler and a bunch of undrafted players. But I love what Jimmy Butler said in the post-game press conference after they beat the Celtics. He said, I don't look at them as being undrafted players. I look at them as being teammates. And so I love that. And so Eric Spoelstra, man, I think he's the best coach in the NBA. And honestly, Wilton, this is another thing I thought about too. I got to get a Heat credit and Heat culture credit, Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra credit, because I don't understand how they are able to do this being in Miami. How are they able to stay focused like this? You're down there at South Beach in Miami. We know how Miami is. And for them to be focused every year in the playoffs, that's something else we have to discuss and give them credit for. We know South Beach is somewhere we all can become distracted if we're in South Beach in Miami. So the fact that they're able to still be relevant and contenders in the Eastern Conference and in the championship conversation year after year after year, it's a testament to Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra and this great organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. You couldn't have said it any better.
For sure. For sure. And so it's prediction time. What is your prediction for the NBA Finals, Wilton? Who you got and how many games?
I think the Nuggets are going to win it. I think it's going to be tough. I think that they win both games. They go up 2-0. I think that Miami comes back and potentially wins another 2 games, and then it starts to split. But I have the Nuggets winning 4-2 in 6 games. In 6 games.
Okay, now if we get to a game 6 and game 7, Wilton, watch out, because I think the Miami playing with house money. They playing with house money, Wilton. The Nuggets are overwhelming favorites to win the NBA Finals. So if we get to a game 6 and a game 7, watch out. Can you agree with that? Like, hey,
If it gets to a game 7, it's anybody's game. It's like what I tell people: the series starts over. It's no longer like, oh, who's leading the series, who's winning the series. The series is tied. If it's a game 7, the series is tied. It's not about X's and O's. It's not about, hey, is somebody going to be able to stop Jamal Murray coming off of a pick and roll with Nikola Jokic, and is Jimmy Butler going to still be able to get to the bucket, to potentially get fouled to get to the free throw line. It's no longer about that. It's about grit, discipline, persistent, who wants it more. And if it does get to a game 7 in that particular sense, it could favor Miami. And you just listed one reason why. You just said Eric Spoelstra is 5-3 in elimination games. That could become a big factor. And like I said, having the fact that Miami just played in a game 7 and having to beat Boston, that would play a lot. That would impact them a lot.
Agreed. He's a sports writer for the Sports Illustrated and host of the Red Diamond Report podcast. He is Wilton Jackson. Will, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
So you can find me at Wilton Reports on Twitter, Wilton Reports underscore on Instagram. And then, like you mentioned, man, following my podcast, I just relaunched it. It's called the Red Diamond Report podcast. If you want to follow it on Twitter, you can follow it at the RDR Report. And on Instagram, it's going to be the RDR Report as well.
He is Wilton Jackson. Wilton, I appreciate you coming on the show this afternoon, man. I'm going to definitely bring you on sometime in the summer. We can talk some football. I love bringing you on for sure, brother. I'm going to definitely bring you on again.
Sounds good, Trey. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Have a good one. That is Wilton Jackson. Everyone go and follow Wilton on all social media platforms and follow the Red Diamond Report podcast.